Here we go again. Yeah, I think we're 3 weeks into January now. Wanted to highlight the Monsters of Rock cruise that's coming up in April. I've got no plans of going this year. Taking a little break. Still wanted to give a little highlight, a little shout out because it is one of the best cruises out there. So many cruises going on. A lot of classic rock cruises, classic rock festivals, rock festivals. Plenty to choose from. This one costs you a little bit, but see, they do little things. Kinds of bands. I believe that's from 2018. Not exactly sure, but just wanted to give a highlight and a shout out because, like I said, it's so great. I've only missed a couple since 2013. I think it started in 2012. Me and my buddy John that I met at Rocklahoma. We both just went on our own, met in the middle. Kept adding people as we went. So shout out to Tony and Shelly from Arizona. I don't know if they're going this year. Miss them. Jay and Angie, I think we met them. They're from Lexington, Kentucky, so they was close by. Actually went to a few things they got going on. Lots of stuff there going on. Lots of great people you meet from all over the world. I've met people from over in England, Australia, Japan. I mean, you meet people waiting in line to get in. You meet all the rock stars. You talk to them. So many stories there. Monsters of Rock Cruise is definitely, if you can afford it, save up for it, and they let you make payments. It is definitely a highlight of the year when you do go. It's talk of many years to come. I don't even know if I could pick a favorite year. Because every year's just got its own magic about it. But anyway, I just wanted to give a little shout out to the Monsters of Rock Cruise there, and they work hard to make it happen. They're also the same people who do Monsters on the Mountain. I'll do a highlight of that sometime. Waiting to see if it's going to happen this year. Some people speculating that it won't. I don't think they announced it last year till February. So I haven't given up hope on that yet. We'll wait and see. But let's get into. We've got a little music news. Talking about a Journey last time with Greg Raleigh and Jonathan Cain, and thought Jonathan Cain was out. Greg Raleigh was in, which I love Jonathan Cain, and I love Greg Raleigh. And I haven't ever seen Greg Raleigh, so I was kind of excited to go see him. But a friend of mine, Shauna, she sent a little thing saying that that's not the case. Greg Raleigh is not part of it. Now I got my information from Classic Rock Magazine, which the magazine. That just shows you how things can change because they're usually spot on. But, I mean, the music business, it can change on a dime, And it's the Journey name getting booked. And it's the 50th anniversary, I guess, that they're touring on, which there's a few bands touring on the 50th anniversary. It was crazy to think, but because I think Kiss is doing a 50th anniversary before they wrap their end of the road tour up. But Journey, I found this little thing.
This is too big of an anniversary not to allow people to come back if they wanted to come back. You invite everybody in. Ainsley Dunbar should be invited. George Tickner, if he's still around, should be invited. Why not? I mean, hey, he did some writing and he was with the band at the very beginning, and
see, that's what I agree with him on that. The 50th anniversary. Put your differences aside, whether it be with Jonathan Cain or be with Greg Raleigh or Anthony Dunbar, whoever, and whether it's show here or there, whatever, like Foreigner did. Mick Jones is the only original member, but I believe it was the last tour. He ended up having Lou Gramm show up at some shows, and I think they still have Words now, but and that's a shame that Foreigner's not even in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's a whole nother issue, though. But I mean, I get people want to see the original members. I really do. In fact, I was going to go watch April Wine over in Ohio, but then a friend of mine from Canada pointed out to me that Miles Goodwin was retiring from touring, which is understandable. He's got to be in his 70s, and so that kind of changed my mind. I was going to go if my brother was still going to go, but he decided not to go. So I don't. I'm not a big fan of the venue. The venues, it's okay. It'd do. I'm glad there's places for these guys to go and play, so it'd do. I'm all right with it, but it's not my favorite venue. So I'll wait if they come. Maybe closer by or something, or another opportunity pops up. I might go see them just for the songs. But without Miles Goodwin, he's the voice, he's the singer, and the guitarist, one of the guitarists. So I'm not going to see them. Noticing that little clip I played, Jeff Beck thing was in the back, and I know I mentioned last time I regret not going to see Jeff Beck. I regret not seeing Jeff Beck at that last concert that I had a chance to go to, but I have seen Jeff Beck. I did get to see him with Paul Rogers and Ann Wilson from Heart, so I have seen them, so I do get to mark that off my list, So I've seen all the greats, I believe. Very few. I like to see the Rolling Stones, the Who. That's a couple that I can think of offhand. But anyway, and then there's a lot of those other cruises. I'll get back to the cruises where you can see these other bands or these other festivals. So you just gotta research what you want to do. You gotta look on the other side of everything else. By the way, if you're catching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment. So I've kind of listened to some viewers, some listeners. Like I said, Shauna pointed out the whole journey situation. So, and if it changes, I'll report on it. But from what she sent me, it's looking like Greg Raleigh's not in. It's at the 50th anniversary, so hopefully they'll get some things changed there. But somebody else, Andy, man, I worked with him, and then he became a teacher at a neighboring school, and I was DJing at the time, and he would get me and my friend Joey in there. We did DJ a lot of his after basketball parties. So I had a good time there. And he plays music, and so anyway, Andy he recommended a documentary because I've been pointing out documentaries, which this Wednesday Triumph documentary is going to be Access TV. If you got Access TV, a huge Triumph fan, one of my top favorite bands. So I recommend that. I'm definitely got it set to record, and I'm going to be watching that, and I'll report on that next week, I'm sure. But here, pointed out one is on Tubi. Tubi Television, and that's TUBI. It's free. Got movies, got TV shows, all kinds of stuff, and it's got some documentaries, and it's got one called "What Is Classic Rock?"
And on that note,
what is classic rock? Is it a genre? Is it a marketing term? A time period, perhaps? How do you define the term classic rock?
you wonder.
So it was a pretty good documentary, and it is a great question, and he really gets into it. Because classic rock was basically a radio term that they came up with. Like I think it was 1980. They pointed out in the documentary. In 1980, there was they were changing the format and they're calling it classic rock station. They was playing like stuff from the 70s because 50s and 60s was getting to be considered oldies. Then, so you could even go into the early 80s as part of classic rock. So it's really up to the listener. And a lot of people have different points of views. But this guy, he couldn't get anybody to finance his documentary. So he just went out on his own, just him, a camera. He went to these, I don't know how long it took him to do it, but probably at least a year, 2 years maybe. He went around, interviewed all these different people. got all these different points of views. And classic rock. I mean, it's what do you think classic rock is? Because now classic rock stations they've evolved. Because as somebody pointed out in there, if, sooner or later it becomes oldies if you just keep playing the same thing. So now classic rock they're playing stuff from the '90s. So is classic rock anything over 25 years old, 30 years old? Is classic rock just 70s, early 80s? And then does it turn into like, 80s rock? I don't know. Or it's hard to, grunge has got its own thing. And then they went into new metal and industrial. And there's so many subgenres now. That's one thing I miss. I like mixing it up. They even go into the whole death of well, a lot of them. They all seem to agree that rock's not dead, but they all seem to think that it's dying. And in a way, maybe. I mean, because it's not what it was. It's kind of reverted back to the original, where it's being played at state fairs and all that. But if you notice, all the big concerts, or the majority of the big concerts, even though you got to put 3 or 4 bands on the bill or whatever, it's kind of the classic rock, 80s rock, early 90s genre. Even like Monsters of Rock Cruise, Because I know a lot of people got upset at the last cruise because they added Lit, which was more of a later 90s band, early 2000s. And it didn't bother me because they killed it. They sounded great. Buck Cherry, late 90s, early 2000s, but they got that classic rock sound. People don't seem to have a problem with that because it is more of the sound. And it's classic rock, just a sound. That's what you get into now because that's what I do here. I try to highlight a lot of the bands that has that sound. And they're newer bands. But anyway, let's see what else we can get into here. Let's get into a little news. We all know about the whole Biden thing. They just keep finding classified documents. And the last one I heard was found classified documents from when he was a senator. So, I mean, how long has this guy been doing this? And, I mean, why are they classified if anybody can just carry them right out? Take them right out of the White House, whatever they're at, whatever. I mean, shouldn't there be a process? I mean, and it's just a hypocrisy. We talked about it before. It comes back to you had Nancy Pelosi's on nobody's above the law, and Biden saying, how can anybody be so irresponsible? I take it so seriously, classified documents. And then evidently he didn't. And then I've been seeing pictures of Hunter Biden driving the Corvette, and as we know, a lot of the classified documents they got discovered sitting in the garage behind the Corvette. And Hunter Biden, I mean, he's had dealings with China, and China is one of our, we're one of our enemies, whether you want to admit it or not. But anyway, I wanted to get off of that a little bit, even though I just talked about it a lot. But yeah, big thing. I think Alec Baldwin, he's been charged with reckless manslaughter or something like that. I believe that's what it is, or reckless abandon. I can't remember exactly the terminology for it, but the Baldwin thing, when he's on the movie set and he pointed the gun, he shot it, and he ended up killing somebody. Of course, he says, I didn't pull the trigger, but then there's experts saying, well, there's no way he had to, it is probably a hairpin trigger, but that means he had his finger on the trigger. And so anyway, that's the thing now.
Wolf, who has taken issue with Baldwin's claim that he didn't pull the trigger. He's a weapons safety expert for films. He's been involved in investigations of 4 accidental movie set shootings, including the 1993 shooting of Bruce Lee's son, Brandon Lee. Steve, good to have you back on the program. Obviously, this is big news that he is being charged with involuntary manslaughter.
Remember the Brandon Lee one? That was a big thing.
This moment with George Stephanopoulos and Alec Baldwin. We'll see you on the other side of this.
It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No.
See,
I would
so it
never
wasn't in the
do that.
script
I'm
from
gonna
the pull the
No,
trigger.
never.
So why
Never.
did he have his finger on the trigger? And
So
then
what's
why
your
did he
take on
just
that,
lie
Ray,
about
given
it?
everything
He's
that we
just
know
so
now?
arrogant. I think that's why I don't have any
Load of
sympathy for
crap.
him.
I think as much as I can say on family television.
Anyway, it's a pretty good little interview there. With some experts talking about it, and like that guy there, he said it could have been a hairpin trigger, but you had to have your finger on the trigger. It's not just going to go off. And the thing about the kind of gun it wasn't a Glock or whatever. It's a Western, so it was your 6-shooter. So you can look right down and you can see if there's anything in the chamber. The only thing I got is they should be looking at more than just Alec Baldwin. Now he's the producer. He was the one that had his finger on the trigger. So yeah, he is responsible. And that could be the civil case, and I think he did settle that with some money, as most of them, that's what they do. But the person that he hired was negligent in their job because somebody gave him a gun and said it was a code gun, meaning that there wasn't anything in the chamber. The scene didn't even pull for anything to be trigger be pulled. Just a lot of things there, and then his arrogance. That's why I just have no sympathy for him. And yeah, something needs to be happening. Maybe to change things. Maybe people they fight to have their name put on there as a producer, even when they don't even really do anything. So maybe we'll say, hey, I don't want that responsibility. I don't. Probably not. It's probably not going to change anything because most of them maybe not as arrogant as Alec Baldwin, but they're all pretty arrogant. But anyway, I do want to showcase some new music by some older bands. So instead of going into maybe bands you haven't heard of, these are bands you've heard of that put out some new songs. And one of them's Faster Pussycat. My friend Greg, he is the one that pointed this out to me, that they had a new song. It don't sound bad. It's got some potential. I was reading an interview with Tammy Downs, singer for Faster Pussycat, and they asked if there was an album coming to follow, and interestingly enough, he said that they wasn't doing an album. They were just going to release singles as they did them. And then if they got so many singles, then they might put it as a effort of all the songs together, and then put an album out later on. But that's what I think a lot of bands are going to end up doing. They're just going to start doing singles, and because most of them's touring constantly, because that's where they're making their money, and a lot of them just do weekend fly dates and stuff anyway, or they get on to a bill with a couple other bands where they can make it worth being out on the road. And I've always liked Faster Pussycat. Now, on the cruise, they were always good, and they definitely had their audience. They get a big audience. They do a midnight show that people just love. But to me, he kind of got goth there for a little while. He kind of got dark and that stuff. But I mean, the early Faster Pussycat songs, I mean, I was a big fan of those. Where There's a Whip, There's a Way. I mean, I love that album that was off of. But anyway, it's got some potential. I'm liking that song. I think there's another song coming out. So I'll keep an eye out for that and see what's going on with that. And now we're going to jump up a little bit. Another favorite band of mine. This is more into the 2000s, Theory of a Dead Man. I always like these guys. Always fun.
Cheap drinks, sticky floors in my safe place. Driving across lanes in my brand new car. Seat laid back as I'm going hard. Looking real slick with my big chainsaw. Cause I'ma just do whatever I want. I feel crazy, I feel amazing.
Kind of got a little bit of the rap in there, but good groove, I like it. That's just a band, or was just looking at see what new was coming out, and I forget if it was Amazon or if it was Google, but they had a thing where they was playing like the new songs, just had a list of new songs that's coming out, and that was one of them. So I think they do have an album coming out, but that caught my attention. It had a good little groove. It was good fun. Like I said, a little rap feel to it there, but that good rock rap, and so I was kind of into that. I like that. Now another one somebody pointed out at the very when I first started doing podcast. Well, speaking of podcast, I did talk to my friend Sean a little while back. He's my partner in Rejected Reality, and he's still keeping real busy. He's got some issues going on, and then he's working a lot of hours, and I guess he's kind of becoming a big maintenance guy up there where he's at, and which he's loving. So, but he said he was working on a podcast room. I don't know if that means he's going to start him another thing on the side, or if he's wanting to get Rejected Reality back up, and if we could do that again. But if we do, I'll definitely let you know here, and I'll definitely be posting it on Facebook and whatnot. And but anyway, when I first started doing this podcast, somebody pointed out Liliac. And if you're not familiar with Liliac, let me get you familiar with Liliac real quick.
Your voice is so big. I absolutely loved it. And you guys play great.
The further we go on the world's best, we get to bring rock and roll back to the people, and that's kind of the Liliac dream.
Anyway, Liliac, I got to see him a couple of years ago at the first Monsters on the Mountain, and I really enjoyed them. When somebody's like, "Hey, have you heard of these guys?" And yeah, I've heard of them, and got to see them. And I remember my wife and I, we first started watching. They were real young. They'd be playing like on the Santa Monica Pier and stuff like that, and they get a big crowd around them, and their mom and dad was over there, and putting it up there, and they kind of became YouTube stars, and then evidently they got on The Voice or something from Australia or England, wherever that is, I don't know. But Liliac, definitely check them out, because they're all family, they're all brother and sister, and they've grown up, because like I said, they were like young, really, really young whenever they was first watching. Now they're, a few of them's like young adults now, and but the girl's got such a powerful voice, and they do a lot of they got some originals. I'll be honest, I'm not so much into their originals as much so far. I'll keep an eye on it, see if they put anything out, and maybe I need to do a little better research on it and see if there is something. But they do a lot of Dio, Iron Maiden, stuff like that, and so I think you get a kick out of them, especially if you like the cover bands, if you like the tribute stuff. So they are definitely worth checking out. So, but I think that's where I'm going to end it here. Just remember, if you're looking for good music, TV, cruises, documentaries, whatever, sometimes you got to look on the other side, because that's just where everything else might be. It's just like the hokey pokey. You put your left foot in, you take your left foot out. You put your left foot in, you shake it all about. And then you gotta turn yourself around, because, who knows? That just might be what it's all about. You don't know. But anyway, the only other advice I can give you is if at first you don't succeed, skydiving might not be for you. So until the next time, I'll see you on the other side.